Everyone has nightmares. But for actors, they can take a very different form because their worst nightmares happen when they are wide awake.
And I fly off the ramp and into the lap of a patron in the front row.
All the lines went out of my head.
You're missing your entrance.
And I cold cock him in the jaw.
And I feel something crawl into my ear canal and go inside.
He takes the chicken costume head off and makes his toupee stand straight up on his head.
What I've been saying in Vietnamese translates to my hurts when I don't look at you.
I'm Luann Moldovan, host of The Actor's Nightmare. Join us each week for real horror stories from the stage, told by the actors who actually lived through them. Sometimes terrifying, sometimes hard to believe, often very funny. And every actor who has been around long enough has at least one nightmare story from the stage that made them think, it's time to get a real job. Hi, I'm Luann Moldovan, and welcome to The Actor's Nightmare. We have a great story today, but before we get into it, I want to thank our sponsors who have been so supportive of the show. First, a big shout out to Artists Repertory Theater, Portland's premier regional theater company, producing intimate, provocative shows that provide a home for a diverse community of artists where they can thrive and take risks. Check out their 2019-2020 season at www.artistrep.org. Also, thanks so much to our patrons, Bob Conklin, and to Len and Susan Magazine and their company Real Estats, providing statistical overviews for residential real estate in Oregon and Washington. Check them out at www.realestats.net. And of course, we are so grateful for the studio at North Rim, where we record our podcast. If you want to do a show, check them out at studioatnorthrim.com. All right, so today we have in the studio Luisa Sermol. Now, Luisa, interestingly, you started out as an English major in college, and you thought you wanted to be a critic. Was that a reviewer?
Yeah, I had believed or was under the impression that if I wanted to be an actress, but I thought I was too smart to be an actress, that our actors aren't smart people. That was kind of bred into me. So when I was in, and I had played viola for a long time, so I'd always played for things, but I always wanted to be up on the stage. So and I started doing a little of that, but I still didn't take it seriously as a career. But then in my junior year of college, I went abroad to London and studied over there, and they only had theater classes. So I did that instead. And at that point I thought, because we would read a play, then we'd go and see it, and then we'd discuss it. And I really loved that aspect of it. So I came back and took it on, meaning there were skills that I could learn. And actually, you didn't have to be hit by lightning and inspired. You could learn a whole skill set. And so I learned about acting that way, and that it is something that there's a serious study attached to it.
Right.
And so that prompted me to continue on, and I did my undergraduate thesis in directing and writing, what an author's intent was, and found that with acting you can actually do something with it, not just turn it in. And so then I went to graduate school to Juilliard and followed that instinct. So
Yes, and that's minimizing the magnitude of what you did to get to Juilliard and to go through Juilliard. I mean, first of all, so I love that you combine the cerebral aspect of your interests and gave birth to or gave expression to the creative aspect of wanting to express it in a way as an actor.
Right.
That was legitimate. It's a legitimate intellectual exercise as well as a creative one. And getting into Juilliard is a huge accomplishment.
thank you, Luann.
You are here to tell me
Bodily fluid story.
we love those.
This was back when we did Edward Albee's The Goat. And in The Goat, the story is that the wife finds out that her husband's having an affair with a goat.
With a goat.
So it's and it's very poignant. It's very, it's a hard show. And I played the wife, and there's Edward Albee has written in there the stage direction when she finds out about it and how she tries to cope with it. As she's sitting on the couch, and it says I'm paraphrasing, but she moans a moan, a primal moan that nobody has ever heard before, kind of thing. So that, when you see that as an actor, thinking, well, okay, what's that going to be? So, but as you're working on the show and you're internalizing all this pain of this woman and everything, so I have this big moment of moaning. And when you moan like that, you have to let everything go. So you can't hold back.
It all goes into the moan.
It all goes into the moan. And
I remember the moan. I saw that, of course, that production. And it was gut-wrenching.
I'm on a white couch. I'm wearing a suede skirt. And I did my big moan, and I thought, oh no, I just peed. Everyone's looking at you, obviously, because you just made this huge moan, and I have to exit, and I'm thinking, and I'm on this white couch, and I had to kind of squiggle a little bit, squish, because thinking, I can't get up and have a pool there.
Did you have a big pee spot on your skirt?
Yes, I did.
So did you kind of sidle out? How did you exit without, did you sidle yourself
I
off
can't
stage,
remember
or-
exactly, but
People must have seen that.
probably.
Okay.
Yes.
But then life goes on, and
Yes.
they had other thoughts in their mind.
I'm hoping my moan moved them not to, or maybe they thought it was planned. I mean, it could have been because it was such a big moan.
That's right.
They don't know it doesn't say, and pees.
And she pees.
She moans so much she pees. Yeah.
Now, why don't you tell me about the one in Three Sisters?
Okay. This is actually interesting because they just recently, the theater closed. The sad part for me, other than having done shows there, was I left a piece of my body on that stage, and that was too. So that's the story of the piece of my body.
That sounds gruesome.
That is on the
Let's
stage.
hear this.
So there is a visual which you can't see, but you can see the little notch here. So
She's pointing to her delicate, beautiful little nose.
And there's a little notch, a little piece of me. So I played Masha in Three Sisters, and at the end of the play, there's a scene where Masha says goodbye to Vershinin, and
he is her love interest.
She's married in the show to her husband, but this is her love affair, right? So she goes to say goodbye to him in this passionate kiss. So we have a passionate kiss, and then he's going and leaving, and it's destroying her life. So she then falls down his body to the floor, and I would cry on the floor, and a pool of tears would be there. And then my husband character and my sister would come over and pick me up and take me over and console me during this. Well, this one night I go and I kiss him, and I start going down his body, and I suddenly see red, and just everything just stars and red. I didn't know what had happened. I kind of went into shock, and I go down to his body and think, I don't know what just happened. And I get to the bottom, and I'm at the bottom of his feet there, and what I normally see as the pool of tears is now mixed with blood, and there's a whole pool of blood that has forming there.
And you're not even sure, is it mine? Is it his?
I don't know. I know something happened to me, but there was this blood happening there. So then my husband character and sister come over, and they both look at me with these eyes of like, oh my God. Then they see the pool. They normally come over and wipe up the tears with their handkerchiefs. So they had handkerchiefs, which was fortuitous because they wiped up the blood. And somebody else was in the audience that night, and they said they could not tell what had happened because they did it so cleanly. Wow. And I'm in a state of shock, kind of, that I get pulled over to the chair and just looking at my my partner's like, what's happening? And they're just kind of giving me the handkerchiefs because they've got to continue. It was towards the end of the show. So there was just that final monologue of the three sisters talking about going to Moscow at the end that I just had to get through with the handkerchief on my nose to get through, and then realized when we got off stage that it had, what had happened was Vershinin had a military jacket on that had one of those giant hooks, and he'd complained to the costumer about it, but she had not removed it yet. And so it grabbed onto my nose as I went down his body and ripped my nose as I fell down. So my nose is missing a little piece of it there that is now on the floor, that is now gone.
The notch of your sweet
was
nose
a notch.
is
Yeah. So and we called the they brought in the first aid and called, and they called a doctor who was a friend, and explained what had happened. He said, it'll probably be okay. It probably could have used a stitch or two because it has because of the notch in the nose.
God.
But it is my theater scar that I
Your
live
war
with now. My
wound.
war wound.
Yes.
Yes, my war wound.
Wow. Okay. Well, and now, I see someone's arrived with some Depends. Are those for Luisa?
Thanks, Luann.
Okay, Luisa.
Okay, I don't
Thank
need
you
them
for being
anymore.
here, Luisa Sermol. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Actor's Nightmare. If you have a story you'd like to share and want to be on the show, it's really easy. Just record it into your phone and send it in an email to actorsnightmarepodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing your stories, and we're always on the lookout for new ones. So please, don't be shy. That's actorsnightmarepodcast@gmail.com. We'll be putting up a new podcast each week, so be sure to subscribe and support the show by liking us on Facebook. And again, I want to thank our sponsors, Artist Repertory Theater, Portland's premier regional theater company, producing intimate, provocative shows that provide a home for a diverse community of artists where they can thrive and take risks. And to Bob Conklin, an ardent sponsor of all things theatrical here in Portland. And finally, to Real Estats, providing statistical overviews for residential real estate in Oregon and Washington. This is Luann Moldavin. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time on The Actor's Nightmare.